Are we living at the end of the world, guys? Look around you. Wars raging, earthquakes shattering cities, like what happened in Venezuela just 2 days ago. Fires consuming everything, political systems collapsing in madness, mass surveillance tracking your every move, artificial intelligence evolving faster than we can comprehend. But what if all this was predicted thousands of years ago? Enter the book of Revelation, the strangest, most shocking book in the entire Bible. A vision where reality collapses into cosmic warfare. Beasts rising from the sea, a dragon devouring stars, a dark mark controlling who can buy and who can sell, a blood soaked Messiah riding into battle. This has become a master script on how billions believe the world will end. But here is the question, guys, that changes everything. Is Revelation really about the end of the world, or is it about something else entirely? Because for centuries, mystics, secret societies, and occult initiates have believed this book holds a code, not for destruction, but for transformation. In this investigation, guys, we're going to crack it wide open, from ancient visions to doomsday cults to political paranoia. We're tracing how Revelation became the most dangerous, misunderstood, and strangest book in the Bible. And we're answering the question, what if it predicted what's happening in the world right now? What you're about to discover, guys, will change how you see everything. The book of Revelation is the final book in the Bible, but it has a massive problem. It's completely different from everything else that came before it. Think about it. How do we go from love your enemies as you love yourself to a lake of fire for everybody? Did Jesus have some kind of personality disorder? In Revelation, he's a warrior drenched in blood, like he just walked off the set of Game of Thrones. And I'm not exaggerating, guys. Revelation describes Jesus wearing a robe dipped in blood, ready to strike down the wicked. My name is Professor Hassan Zirode, and I am an ex-Christian revealing hidden knowledge to transform consciousness and create a new world. Before we can unpack what Revelation means, we need to look at what it actually says. And fair warning, it's insane, guys. Demons with scorpion tails, undead mutant lambs with 7 eyes, a dragon trying to eat a baby. Once we've gone through this madness, we'll talk about what it actually means, not just a prophecy, but as a code. Here is how it starts. There's a man named John. He's old, exiled to a barren island called Patmos, left to rot for his beliefs. But one day, something happens, something he wasn't expecting. He writes, I was in the spirit of the Lord's day and heard behind me a great voice, as of a trumpet saying, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. I was in the spirit. That sounds cryptic, guys. But basically, he was in some kind of altered state or high on some tough crack. Vision, mushroom-induced trance, holy LCD. He doesn't explain. What he does say is that he heard a voice behind him. When he turns to see who is speaking, he loses all sense of reality. John writes, and he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. Who the hell was this? Jesus, but not like anyone's ever described him. He's holding 7 stars, a face shining like the sun, a sword coming out of his mouth. Who knew sideshows were popular in heaven, guys? John straight up faints, like he just watched the whole thing from the front row. This terrifying vision of Christ says, write what you're about to see, because what John's about to witness isn't just for him, it's for everyone. And this is where things really spiral out of control. Suddenly, John's not in Patmos anymore. He's somewhere else, heaven itself. He sees a throne with a rainbow around it. God was reaping pride months way before it had a flag. Someone's on this throne. Lightning and thunder and voices are booming from it. The throne is surrounded by 24 elders wearing crowns. 7 blazing torches burn in front, called the 7 spirits of the Lord. But it gets even wilder. There are 4 strange beings, like animals but not. One looks like a lion, another like an ox, one like a man, one like an eagle. But get this, they all have 6 wings and are completely covered with eyes, front and back. These beings never stop speaking. over and over, day and night. They say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who is and is to come." John's just watching all this. Then someone appears holding a scroll, but it's sealed shut with 7 wax seals. Suddenly, a voice asks, "Who is worthy to open it?" Nobody can. And John starts crying because this scroll contains the future. And if no one can open it, no one's ever going to know how the story ends. But then someone else steps forward. Now John's expecting a lion, the Lion of Judah, but instead he sees a lamb. But this is not a peaceful little lamb grazing in a meadow. It was a lamb standing as though it has been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes. Recap: there is a bleeding undead mutant lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyeballs. This is Jesus again, but not turn the other cheek Jesus. This is an Eldritch horror Jesus. When this lamb breaks the first seal, what happens next is crazy. John says, "I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he came out conquering and to conquer." You know what's coming? This is the first of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. This man is a conquest. This guy is out here like some divine colonialist. Then comes the second seal. Out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth so that people should slay one another. And he was given a great sword. This is war. Then the third seal unleashes a black horse. Its rider had a pair of scales in his hand, and I heard a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine. This is famine, inflation, economic collapse. The basic of survival are now luxuries. If you thought tariffs were bad, this guy is basically the doomsday prophet of Wall Street. Then the 4th seal, I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider name was Death, and Hades followed him. Death, and behind him Hades, the underworld itself. They were given authority over 1/4 of the world to kill with the sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth. 1/4 of the world gone. Mass death on the global scale. Then the 5th seal, but it doesn't release a horseman, guys. It reveals a cry. I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God. He cried out with a loud voice, "O sovereign Lord, how long before you will judge and avenge our blood?" These are the martyrs. They are asking how much longer this injustice will stand. They are told basically, "Hey, hold on. Some more people need to die fast." Seriously? They were told to wait a little longer until the full number of brothers and sisters were killed, just as they had been. Then the 6th seal. This is the moment the heavens starts collapsing. There was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth. The full moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth. The sky vanished like a scroll that's being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Cosmic collapse. Reality unraveling. The simulation crashing. And just when it feels like the world is spiraling totally out of control, something unexpected happens. Before the 7th seal opens, there was a pause. During that pause, John sees a group of people being sealed. 144,000 of them. Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of God on their foreheads. These people are protected, marked, chosen by God. But who are they really? John doesn't give a lot of details. Basically, they have got spiritual passes to survive whatever comes next. Then the final seal breaks, and something even weirder happens. Nothing literally. When the Lamb opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Total silence. No choirs, no trumpets, no thunder, no cosmic screaming goats. Is the silence before the storm. Because what comes next are trumpets. 7 angels, each with a trumpet. If you thought the 7 seals were bad, get ready for this. It's like the earth is being torn apart. Hail and fire mixed with blood were thrown upon the earth, and 1/3 of the earth was burned up. Blood, hail. 1/3 of the earth gone, like Thanos snapping his fingers. The second trumpet, something like a huge mountain, all blessed, was thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the sea became blood, and 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. Something like a mountain fire sounds a lot like a steroid. The 3rd trumpet sounds. A great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and it fell on a third of rivers. The name of the star is Wormwood. Then the fourth trumpet. Light itself begins to dim. A third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars. The sky darkens. Time fractures. That is when an eagle flies through the air and cries out, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth." Why? Because the worst haven't even started yet. We've heard blood moons, poisoned rivers, fire, hail, and screaming eagles, but the fifth trumpet opens hell. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth. But these guys aren't just insects. These are demonic beings. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces. Their hair like women's hair. And their teeth like lions' teeth. Their tails were like scorpions with stingers. This is crazy stuff. Like something out of the alien movies. And these creatures aren't here to kill. They're here to torture. They were allowed to torment them for 5 months. And in those days, people will seek death but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. People are begging to die, but they literally can't. 5 months of non-stop demonic torture. If things were bad enough, then comes trumpet number 6. The number of the mounted troops was twice 10,000 times 10,000. That is 200 million horsemen. But these aren't ordinary horses, guys. John describes them. The heads of the horses resemble the heads of lions, and out of their mouth came fire, smoke, and sulfur. A third of mankind was killed by 3 plagues of fire, smoke, and sulfur that came out of their mouth. The power of these horses was in their mouth and their tails, for their tails are like snakes. This is not My Little Pony. Another third of humanity completely gone. But even after all that, Revelation says, the rest of the mankind did not repent. Then the story shifts. The big bad of Revelation is about to enter the chart. John writes, "And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads." This is the beast, the one that people have feared for centuries. The Antichrist. He doesn't rise on his own. He's given power by the dragon. And do it. The dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. The dragon is Satan, the devil himself, and the whole world worships the beast. They worship the dragon and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast who can fight against it?" Then another figure appears. A second beast rises from the earth. This one speaks like a dragon, but looks like a lamb, sheep in wolf's cloth. He performs miracles, he deceives, he's known as a false prophet. Together, the beast and the prophet enforces global control through one single system. People aren't scared of these guys though. The beast is trending. The Antichrist has fans. People are lining up to get his autograph tattooed on their foreheads. It causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, to be marked on their right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is where the mark of the beast comes from. Without it, you can't participate in the society at all. No food, no trade, no survival. Then comes the line that haunts humanity for 2,000 years. This calls for wisdom, guys. Let the one with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. At this point, a new figure enters the scene. Nothing like we've seen so far. John describes her. "I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. She was arrayed in purple and scarlet. On her forehead was written a name, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and earth's abominations." She's riding the same beast, the one with 7 heads, and she's drunk, but not on wine, drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. She's wasted on holy murder. She's called a whore, a mother of prostitutes, possessed by demons. Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, but judgment comes fast. She will be burned up with fire, for mighty is the Lord God who has judged her. Just like that, the mother of abominations becomes ash. The final stage is set. The beast, the false prophet, all the kings of the earth, they gather their armies in place. John calls Armageddon. It looks like evil has all the momentum. But then heaven opens. John writes, "Then I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. The one sitting on it is called Faithful and True. His eyes are like flame of fire, and his robe on his thigh, he has a name written, King of the Kings, Lord of Lords." This is Christ's return. Not with peace, with judgment. He is not alone. Behind him are the armies of heaven, come gather for the great supper of God to eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains. Looks like God took the whole eat the rich thing seriously. The beast and the false prophet are captured, thrown into the lake of fire. Everyone else slain, mass execution. You might think it ends there, but no, there's a plot twist. Then I saw an angel, and he seized the dragon and bound him for 1,000 years and threw him into the pit. The dragon is Satan. He's chained, thrown into the abyss. But notice, it says 1,000 years. What about after 1,000 years? Here is the twist. After that, he must be released for a little while. Wait, what? Why? No one explains. God's just like, yeah, we'll lock him up for now, but let's give him one last go later for fancies. Then comes the moment everything's been building towards. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it, and I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. The great white throne judgment, every soul ever standing before a throne and waiting. Books are opened, receipts from every sin you've ever committed. Then there's a book of life. And if anyone's name was not found in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. But after all that, all the collapse, all the judgment, there's something else. John says something new. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride. Peace for the first time. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, nor suffering, no more pain, just light. But the vision doesn't end there. John hears a final warning. Let the evildoer still do evil, and let the righteous still do right. Behold, I am coming soon to repay each one of what they has done. This is why you see people on the sides of the road with the signs that say, repent, Jesus is coming soon. That is what they are actually talking about. Now, this is the odd one out of the New Testament. We've seen beasts and locusts, demons with human faces, cosmic battles, mutant lambs, a dragon. What the hell is this all about? Why is it so different from the other books? Honestly, it's more like something of the Old Testament. Context is key. John of Patmos wrote it during a time of brutal persecution. Early Christians were desperate for hope, or at least vengeance against their enemies. The result, a text that seems a lot more like Lord of Rings meeting an acid trip for something so surreal. Revelation has been shockingly influential, especially in how people think the world's going to end. But here's the thing, not everyone agrees on what it means. There are a few major ways people have read it. Each one is different. First, there is literalist futurist's view. It says Revelation is a literal prophecy about the future. This hasn't happened yet, but it will. Then there is the preterist or past view. Many scholars argue John was writing in symbolic coded language for the Roman Empire. In the first century, some even say the Antichrist was Nero. Then there is a timeless symbolic view. This interpretation says Revelation isn't a literal checklist of events. It's a symbolic story of the eternal struggle between good and evil. Despite these different interpretations, it's the literalist futuristic approach that captured the popular imagination in the last couple centuries. Especially in America, they made tons of movies and books about it, like the Left Behind series. The literalist view is basically a warning about real specific events that are actually going to happen on Earth in the near future, maybe even in our lifetime today. That is exactly what I was taught. I grew up as a Christian, full on end-to-end times. Prophecy charts, rapture movies, constant fear that the world was going to end anytime soon. Here's how this timeline plays out, guys. It all starts with something that's not even in Revelation, but it's essentially to this literalist view, the rapture. You've heard of it already. The idea that one day, suddenly, all Christians will be taken up, snatched away into the sky to meet Jesus and escape what's coming next. They will literally disappear, planes fall out of skies, cars crash, piles of cloth left on the floor. You've probably seen in movies. Where does this come from? Not in Revelation. It's based on a verse like 1 Thessalonians 4:17, which talks about the believers being caught up in the clouds. The term rapture comes from the Latin translation of caught up. But again, it is not in Revelation. Literalists just assume it happens between the lines at some point. If you don't want to get left behind, then hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, guys, for your support. Okay, what happens after rapture? The world is plunged into chaos during a 7-year period Christians call the Great Tribulation. War, famine, disease, persecution, all that supernatural horror we heard about, all the seals and trumpets, that is where that comes in. Literalists read each one as a sequential real event that is going to play out exactly how it is described. When the text says a third of the ocean will turn into blood or locusts with scorpion tails will torture people for 5 months, they mean literally that. Not a symbol, not a prophecy. During this time, global instability creates a perfect opportunity for one man to rise to power. The Antichrist. According to literalists, he's a real man, a charismatic political leader. He'll rise up during all this chaos and offer peace, unity, and stability. He might even perform miracles. Some say he'll even be shot in the head, then miraculously come back to life. Because Revelation says, I saw that one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. The whole world marveled at this miracle and gave allegiance to the beast. People love this guy. He'll be adored. He'll create one world government. Some say even one world religion. For the first 3.5 years, everything seems fine. He brings order. But halfway through, he shows his true colors. He breaks his peace agreement with Israel, declares himself divine, demands worship. That is when the world enters the second half of the Great Tribulation. Things really unravel. To enforce global control, the Antichrist creates an economic system that requires allegiance. Here's the catch. You have to have the mark of the beast on your forehead or on your hand. Literalists take this very seriously. To them, this mark is literal. It could be a barcode, a tattoo, an RFID chip, facial recognition. Whatever the latest technology paranoia is, it gets pulled into this. Some believe it's being tested through digital ID systems. Others point to credit cards, vaccines, passports, anything that seems to track or control commerce. The point is, if you don't have this mark, you're locked out of the economy. You can't buy food, you can't pay rent. You're a non-person. Some believe the mark will be linked to worship of the Antichrist. It is not just technology, guys. It's a symbol of loyalty to his regime. Others go further. Whoever takes the mark of the beast can never be saved, damned to hell for eternity. Again, that is what I was taught. Eventually, all this builds up to a global war. The armies of the world gather at a real location called Armageddon in Israel. Just as everything is about to reach a breaking point, that is when Jesus returns, visibly in glory, not as a lamb or a peacemaker, as a warrior. He destroyed the armies of the Antichrist. The beast and the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. Satan is bound into the abyss, then comes a millennium later. Literalists believe Jesus will reign on earth for 1,000 years from Jerusalem. Peace, justice, a new temple. Satan looked up. But again, not forever. After 1,000 years, Satan's released for one last rebellion. Revelation says, when the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the world. Why? Who knows? It fails. God destroys the final uprising. Then we get the great white throne judgment. Every person who ever lived is resurrected and judged. Those not in the book are thrown into the lake of fire. All the bad guys gone. The good guys win. Peace. For literalists, Revelation is not a metaphor. It's a warning, a very real script for what's about to happen. It's a message that says, prepare. Get right with God or get left behind. If you think this is just silly story that doesn't affect you, think again. This view drives everything, guys. Christian movies, political views, how people vote, how they feel about Israel, globalism, vaccines, digital currencies, and a lot more. It's a worldview built around a specific future and the belief that it's going to happen soon. But if we're being real, the literalist interpretation has caused a long history of end of the world prophecies with a 100% failure rate. Let's start with the Antichrist paranoia. Revelation itself doesn't even use the term Antichrist. It talks about the beast and the false prophet and an evil world ruler. Over time, Christians combined all these concepts into Antichrist, essentially creating the ultimate bad guy for the end times. Naturally, everyone loves to play their favorite game. Who is that Antichrist? This has led to weird game throughout history where people identify their favorite powerful figures and slap the label Antichrist on them. During the Protestant Reformation, people said the Antichrist was the Pope. During the French Revolution, it was Napoleon. In the 20th century, Hitler, of course. Many thought he was definitely the Antichrist. Maybe Stalin, he persecuted Christians. So why not? In America, some even thought it was Ronald Reagan. Because get this, his full name read Ronald Wilson Reagan. Has 6 letters in each of the names. 666. Oh my goodness. When Reagan retired from California, his street address was 666 until he had to change it to 668 just to be safe. People are so afraid of the number 666. There's even a name for it. Hexacosio, hexaconta, hexaphobia. In more recent times, some believed the Antichrist was Barack Obama. Today, many believe it's Donald Trump. For the record, mainstream Christian teaching expects one great Antichrist figure, not a new one every election cycle. Sorry, we can't have a new beast every 4 years. Then there is a fear of the mark of the beast. Backwards, in the 1970s, some Christians freaked out, seeing them as the mark. An IBM engineer even got a letter signed by Satan congratulating him for implementing the devil's plan. The poor engineer had to explain that barcodes aren't hiding 666. And besides, they go on products, not on your forehead. People genuinely believed this about the barcodes. Barcodes. Like God created the universe and then decided the final satanic plan would be the checkout line at a Whole Foods. In the 1980s and beyond, every new technology, credit cards, UPC codes, microchips, spawned fear of the beast's mark. In 2012, a Texas student refused a school ID with a barcode claiming it was satanic mark. Don't get some people started on vaccines. Conspiracy theorists spread out rumors that vaccine syringes are secretly the mark. Some thought vaccines contained nanochips. Spoiler alert, they don't. There is no 666 nanochips in them. It doesn't alter your DNA to make you worship the beast. Every generation thinks they're living in the end times. Every new technology is the mark of the beast. Christians constantly predict the end of the world. They haven't been right yet. What's wild is just how confident they have been and just how wrong they always are. In 1844, a preacher named William Miller told thousands of his followers that Jesus would return on October 22nd. People sold everything. They waited, they watched, then nothing happened. The day came and went. It was such a disaster that it's literally known as the Great Disappointment. In the 1980s, the prophecy craze hit overdrive. Hal Lindsey published The Late Great Planet Earth. He suggested the world would end by 1988, a generation after founding of Israel. Around the same time, Edgar Vincent published 88 Reasons Why the Rapture will be in 1988. He was so sure, he said, only if the Bible is in error, I am wrong. Well, guess what? Spoiler alert, he was wrong again, which by his logic wasn't great for the Bible. But instead of backing off, he just kept revising the dates. 1989, 1993, 1994, none planned out as expected. Then came Y2K, the panic where people thought computers would crash at midnight on January the 1st, the year 2000. Some believed that would spark the end times. I was terrified of the rapture as a kid. I'd turn on the TV to check the news just to make sure people hadn't vanished. Then nothing happened. Midnight hit, Jesus didn't show up. But maybe the most dramatic case was in 2011. Christian radio host Harold Camping predicted the rapture would happen on May 21st. He was so convinced, he spent millions putting up billboards all over the country. Some of his followers gave up their life savings. When the day came and nothing happened, he claimed it had been a spiritual judgment. The real physical destruction would come 5 months later. On October 21st, that day came and went too. Nothing happened. Eventually, he apologized and said it was wrong and sinful to set a date at all. Yet people still haven't learned. New dates pop up every year. TikTok prophets, YouTube preachers, they set vague timelines just far enough into the future to build a following, then quietly disappear when it doesn't happen. So If mainstream Christianity has been trying and failing for centuries to predict the end, what about the people outside the church? What about the ones who aren't trying to escape the apocalypse, but understand it? In the shadows away from the pulpits and prophecy charts, occultists, mystics, and secret societies had their own interpretation of the book of Revelation. In a lot of ways, they saw things more symbolically, more psychologically, more accurately. To them, Revelation isn't a checklist of disasters, it's an initiation. Not about the destruction of the world, but the destruction of the old self. No one captured this more radically than Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, known as the wickedest man in the world, who even called himself the Great Beast 666. Crowley didn't just read Revelation, he identified with it. He believed it wasn't about the end of the time, but the beginning of a new eon, a new era of human consciousness. Crowley didn't think Revelation was a warning. He saw it as a ritual, an initiation, a symbolic map of the soul's transformation, a cosmic drama about destroying all gods, all systems, and all illusions. To understand Crowley's interpretation, you need to understand something about his religion, the Lemma. In the Lemic thought, history unfolds in stages called eons, spiritual ages governed by different divine principles. Crowley told that humanity had already passed through two major eons: the eon of Isis, where the divine feminine and nature were worshipped, then the eon of Osiris, ruled by the death, sacrifice, and patriarchal religion, basically the age of Christianity, where guilt, sin, and suffering dominated consciousness. But now, Crowley said, we're entering the eon of Horus, the age of what he called the crowned and conquering child, symbolizing the rise of individual will, freedom, and self-realization. Not submission to an outside God, but awakening the God within, the inner star, the true self. Revelation in Crowley's system isn't about Judgment Day. It's the ritual destruction of the old eon of Osiris. All the plagues, fires, and beasts and angels, they're not coming for the planet. They're coming for the old world, the inner world ruled by fear and repression. Blind obedience, the whole of Babylon for Crowley isn't a villain. She is sacred. She represents liberation and ecstasy. The divine feminine that rides the beast of carnal, physical existence, fully embraces life without shame. And the beast, he didn't just reinterpret it. He became it. Crowley openly called himself the beast, 666, not to mock Revelation, but to claim it. He believed the number didn't represent evil, but freedom from oppression, that the beast wasn't Satan, but the force that breaks the chains of the old order. To Thelemites, the apocalypse is about punishment. It's initiation by fire, the soul passing through judgment, stripping away false identities, emerging reborn. In the book of the law, which Crowley said was dictated to him by a spiritual entity called Ios, the same themes appear: beasts and stars and judgment. But rather than warning against evil, it embraces transformation. So what does this mean for us, for the world we're living in right now? Maybe Revelation isn't a prediction. Maybe it's a mirror, a reflection of our own fears, our own desires for justice, our own struggle to make sense of the world that often feels like it's falling apart. Maybe the beasts aren't coming from the sea. Maybe they're rising from within us. The hunger for power, the willingness to surrender our freedom for security, the seduction of leaders who promise but deliver tyranny. Maybe the mark of the beast isn't a microchip or a barcode. Maybe it's the price we pay for participating in systems that demand allegiance to things that are not true, not good, not life-giving. Maybe the apocalypse isn't something coming. Maybe it's already here with us and has always been here. Every generation has its own end times, its plagues, its wars, its tyrants. Every generation thinks it is the last. But maybe the end isn't end. Maybe it's the beginning. The days of the old self, the rebirth of something new. That is what the mystics saw. That is what the occults decoded. Not a future of disaster to fear, but an inner transformation to embrace. The question isn't, is the world ending? The question is, are you willing to let your world end? The old identities, the false securities, the comfortable lies, are you willing to let that die so you can be able to be reborn? That is the real revelation. Not a book written 2,000 years ago, but a truth that has been waiting for you along. The apocalypse isn't out there. It's in here. And the beast is everything that keeps you asleep. Wake up. The end is near. But so is the beginning. Be the light to the world, not the smoke of fear and suppression.